It's been a couple months since you were on last, and that was quite a popular episode. And it's always a entertaining and good conversation with you. And we actually kind of got a little serious last time, so I think we're going to go a little bit lighter. But we did want to talk about, because I know that you're still involved in the TACP community, whether it's with the association, foundation, or just, you got a lot of friends in the community, and not just TACP, like CCT, PJ, SR, and that kind of stuff. So. And you're already tracking kind of things that are going on in the career fields. And one of the things that you specifically wanted to hit is kind of the future of the career fields. Is there anything in particular with that?
Well, I think it poses the question for all of us sitting here right now. Is there a future, or were we part of the last legacy, kind of generation that will ever exist? And I strongly believe that, yes, we were. We were part of the last real war wagon generation in these four career fields. Because everything's going to change now. The fight's different. Future wars look different. Like, technology has, I'm not afraid to say it. Technology put JTACs out of a job. And it's not just because, it's an aspect of it simplified it. No, what it did is it made it more realistic for ground force commanders in the Army to be able to do this job on their own and accurately communicate what information is needed to aircrew, to the point where the safety items from 2003 when I came in are no longer safety items anymore. Like, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Do you, in your honest opinion, with the advent of AI and the advent of the targeting suites that we have, do you think that a human needs to be involved in those firing solutions, other than the commander that is, no kidding, calling, essentially giving clearance for the drop, right? It's always a ground force commander that is giving clearance for those drops. But do you think that there's a need for another human in that chain?
Well, let's back up just a tad bit to go, why did we exist in the first place? We existed for a safety measure. We existed because we talked the language. We understood everything that aircraft can do, all its parameters as far as what weapons do what. And then it was our job to battle track and understand where the friendlies were on a constant basis while we're on the battlefield. Well, now technology has advanced on that with our radios that have SA, with the new helmet systems and new queuings and all these new software suites with these new helmet systems that are incorporating augmented reality. Like, now all of a sudden, when you have a small team, whether it's a platoon of infantrymen or an ODA, every last one of them that's keying up their inter-team radio is creating a queue for the pilot to see in his displays. Do you really need us anymore? That's a question we have to ask that. Like, what do we do? What are we actually doing at that point? Because can a 13 Fox do this job? Yeah. With the proper training. And I think we're falling victim to the fact that the Air Force just doesn't want to pay for it anymore. They're kind of going, hey, why are we footing the bill to give the Army JTACs? Why? They need to be doing this. Like, it was a good gig for like a 40-year span until now we do have leadership going, wait a minute.
Well,
wait a second.
It is somewhat, the term JTAC is now somewhat becoming a 4-letter word, but to your point about expenses, right? We are actually relatively cheap. We are very cheap when it comes to big Air Force, big Navy, big Army, right? Because we're not aircraft, we're not ships, we're not boats, we're not tanks or anything like that. So we are relatively cheap. And what some of the guys are doing now is more of a distributed / forward edge C2. So maybe there's some target nomination in there. Maybe it's more of battle hit assessment or battle damage assessment, or, hey, these are updates. I maybe am not able to target X, Y, or Z, but these were the last known grids as of, 1302 local, or Z, for that matter. And that kind of stuff. And because we have, using Air Force Special Warfare, the whole global access, and we have the access and placement to enable that.
Well,
So I don't
let me
necessarily think it's
preface-
completely dead if
Yeah.
if you get where I'm coming from.
I'll do the disclaimer of, hey, it's been 5 years since I've even been in a guard unit. So yeah, don't come in hot on my Instagram or something. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man. Like, I'm going off of, yes, what I hear from my friends, what I hear from the community, what I hear from the leaders, because my peers are now the leaders of the community. And of course, when they have issues, they love to come and bitch to me, because sometimes we want to get visibility on those issues via press or media or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we did this to ourselves. I will say that. We did this to ourselves by, I think, just the TACP career field in general. We never wanted to be good terminal attack controllers. And when I say that, they put the focus on us integrating with the Army much more than they put on us being good terminal attack controllers. If they wanted us to be good TACs, they would have put us, like, our squadrons, ASOSs, would have lived on bombing ranges. We would have been a counter sub squadron to a fighter or attack squadron that we communicated and integrated with every week. You know, we would have A-29s assigned to the ASOS. So when ALOs came for a tour over to the ASOS, they then jumped in the A-29 seat, and our OIC of a flight would fly for us 2 or 3 times a week, doing CAS, still at a budget behind any other fighter squadron. And we would have made really, really good controllers, but we didn't.
Well, that's exactly what they did with PJs. PJs used to live inside the helicopter squadrons for years and years and years. And that was why, because if the helicopters were flying, the PJs were supposed to be on there, and they were supposed to be doing that joint training. And it was all coming out of the same, essentially, training line. Of course, PJs and aircrew are going to have different requirements and stuff, but that's an excellent point. It's exactly what they did with pararescue. You lived with the helicopter squadron. And even when they split them up, you're still right next door. Half the time, the rescue squadrons, the helicopters and the PJ squadrons are literally right next door to one another, and it's for that reason. And it's a very astute observation. I've never put that together, JT, but you're dead right. Why wouldn't the JTACs be at the ASOS that lives with, the ASOS should live with the fighters that they're supporting and training on?
Our largest budget item in an ASOS is that TDY training line item. It's, millions of dollars. Peaches, you would know what, I want to say average squadron, TDY training budget around 8 million, right? A year ish. Okay.
Not spent on, you're talking about the entire budget, not just the CAS training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what
okay.
an ASOG or an ASOS's budget on, a large portion of that budget is just currency and training. It's sending guys on an airplane into a hotel to Vegas to Knitter to sit on Knitter for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, get all their controls, and then go back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So it's like this goes back. I think I said this last time. I go, in the military, we've spent too many times with the book open and a piece of, there's whiteout so thick that it's like this high off the page, and we have never once just ripped the page out and said, hey, let's start over and let's do this to work for us, not us trying to create workarounds. And yes, you say that we are, TACPs and ASOSs and STs are cheap in the grand scheme of things. But when this comes to a 2-star, 3-star right now that could chop us away overnight, and the Air Force sees nothing happened to it at all, they get some pretty big kudos when 90 million, 120 million dollars just frees up magically, and nothing stops the Air Force from running forward.
So there's a lot of okay, I got to say the disclaimer right now. Like, we are talking, dude, you are setting me up, and I know what you're doing, and I don't like it. Okay. These are our opinions and that of our own, and not of the DoD.
Oh,
so
I'm not being specific about somebody right now that's up top. I'm saying in general. This is the way of thinking when
Right.
you get up to that level, because again, like I feel like I have such a better understanding of a lot of these things that I replay in the military now that I've been in a company that is big as it is, with money, with dealing with money as big as it is, and sitting in these meetings where these are $100 million decisions of, or how we can do this. So now I understand the train of thought of, well, wait a minute, we could just cross that out. Nothing happens to us as a force. We don't see anything happen. And now I get the kudos that we just found this money. And to their point though, I have to back them up on when you have the brass sitting up at the Pentagon going, yeah, we don't know why we need this anymore. Like they do kind of have a point.
Yeah.
And again, I was just going to say,
ahead.
if the Army is not supplementing us, so us saying, hey, by the way, United States Army, you're going to give us part of your budget to fund ASOSs because we support you. And the Army goes, well, no, we're not going to do that. We rather put that budget towards making our own 13 Fox JTACs. Like, we're back at we don't have a fucking hill to stand on.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. And listen, you're not going to hear me argue about the whole money aspect of it. To your point about, living near ranges and supporting the Army, though, is that there is something to be said. Like if that is the intent, and that is what is going to happen, is that integration with the Army, there is a lot to be said for being in place, embedded with the Army, because you do get that integration piece. I mean, we do it at the web school. We're bringing in AFSOC to Nellis now that are going to have a permanent facility on Nellis so that we can increase that integration, just because.
So here's my problem with it though, is we've always only been one toe in. So in theory, yes. So in theory, when I show up to the 14th ASOS, Alpha Flight is aligned with 1st Brigade of the 82nd Airborne, the 504th. And each breakdown of the subflights inside there is each battalion. So I was assigned to the Blue Devils, 3rd of the 504th. So in theory, we trained with these guys. We got to know the special staff. We got to know the commander. But the second things went deployed, everything got jumbled because we only do 6 to 10 month trip maxes. The Army's doing 15 months. So what you do is you start out with your aligned unit, and then you leave halfway through and somebody else has to backfill you. Well, by year 2, you're never with the unit that you aligned with to begin with. So in theory, yes, this was good by saying but for it to work, you would have to give them operational control over TACPs. You would have to have us as part of the Army, not at an ASOS. We would have to be where Air Force name tapes, and I brought this up a few years ago. I mean, with the way that they should have done it with SOCOM is ST, a controller, a TACP goes soft TACP or something like that. It's like, hey, you want to go SEALs or ODA? I'd like to go SEALs. All right, you're going to go to dive school, and then you're going to go to SEAL Team 7. You're going to be there for your entire career. You just float around. Like your name tape still says Air Force, and you're still a JTAC, but how much more effective would integration be if you had a controller that had sat at SEAL Team 7 for 10 years and everybody knew him? Like
nobody would like him though.
Yeah, right.
No, I think you would have the opposite, because how many times have we walked in to a team and the first freaking month of our lives is, well, we don't know you. Well, you need to prove this to us. And we got to find somebody that knows you too. And we got to vet you. And same thing with conventional Army. I got off a 10 or 8 month deployment to Mosul, came back, got an eval, turned around and went back into the surge to a new infantry unit. And it was, these guys were cherry. Like they hadn't, the staff had not deployed yet. I had just spent 8 months in Mosul in 2005, and they wanted to hold their nose up at me like, oh, you're just an Air Force dude. What the fuck are we going to do with you? It's like, oh God, here we go with this shit again. Like I hit the reset button. I was talking to Jorgensen about it. I think he ended on 13 deployments. It's like on his 13th one, he's walking in to be a JTAC with an ODA, and the team sergeant is the only one that has deployed more than twice. The Alpha, this is his first trip, and your combat control JTAC has 13 of them under his belt.
Well, I think if we got rid of the Air Force side of the equation, right? Like I don't think the Army would have a hard time prioritizing Army targets and getting the job done. But you would expect Army brass and Air Force brass to effectively communicate on how they're going to do business without the tactical ground truth. And because the TACPs are down there, communicating all the time, right? Like you guys are the interpreters for what the Air Force wants to do and how to best do it and all these other things. And so if you take that out of the equation, I think the Army would do well doing what the Army does. But at the end of the day, as we move forward into the next environments, if the Air Force has targets that they want to prosecute or things that they want to get after, if they don't have people on the ground, how are we going to say we have skin in the game to go after and prosecute Air Force centric targets when the air, we're not going to own the air necessarily in the next, fight or whatever it is.
But if the Air Force wants to do that, they have to go both feet in to do that. And you're going to have to pull in experienced people and put together a training pipeline that truly gets our guys ready to be on their own, like a LERP squadron. We don't have that expertise. That concept a while back ago of them just grabbing 2 EOD guys, a STO, 2 TACPs, 2 PJs, 2 controllers, and this is now the Air Force ODA. No, that doesn't work.
That does not work. Which is why it's not a thing.
But that's the thing is you would have to completely go back into the development phase, pull a lot of assets from the Marines, probably recon. We would literally have to mirror what they do. And we would have to pull in some of their leadership, some of their NCOs to kind of build this out for us. But if that's our route, if that's what the Air Force wants, because Trent, you and I both know, that's what they are going to need if we do this, because the Army isn't necessarily going to be really focused on surface to air threats. Some might, but most of them will overlook it and be more worried about the tanks and the lines of artillery and shit like that. So it's who is going to go do that? I mean, our SOCOM elements probably will. Recce over at the Rangers probably will. But if we're planning on doing that, we would have to dump a ton of money and a ton of training now and say, hey, that's our future. But what we're facing is 50% cut in TACP. They're looking at cutting even more once that 50% is over, because again, and then I'm hearing from almost everybody is no fighter squadron wants to do CAS. Who wants to go waste their money and budget on burning a wheel in the sky of something that they're probably never going to do in the next 15 years?